I never thought my life would turn out like this. Dead ass. If you told 10-year-old me this was how it was gonna go, I would have laughed in your face and said you were trippin'. But here I am. It's 2:34 in the morning. My kid's finally asleep. I'm sitting on the floor of my apartment because the couch broke last year and I never had the money, or the energy, to replace it. My phone screen is cracked, my back hurts, and my brain won't shut up. So yeah. I guess I'm telling my story now. If you ever been up this late just replaying your whole life like a messed up movie, then you already know the vibe. I grew up in a house where yelling was normal and silence was worse. My mom did the best she could, at least that's what everybody says when they don't want to admit someone failed you. She worked 2 jobs, came home exhausted, and didn't really have anything left for me emotionally. My dad? He was there, technically. Same house. Same last name. Zero protection. He wasn't the type to hit me or anything. It was more subtle than that. The way he'd look at me. The comments. The control. The way I learned real early that my comfort didn't matter. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, yeah. Something happened. Something nobody believed. I told my mom once. I was shaking. My hands were sweating. I remember staring at the carpet because I couldn't even look at her face. She sighed. Sighed. And said, "You probably misunderstood. Don't say stuff like that." That sentence messed me up for life. No cap. From that moment on, I learned something dangerous. If it makes people uncomfortable, keep it to yourself. So I did. I grew up fast after that. Too fast. I was cooking my own meals, taking care of myself, acting grown when I was still a kid. At school, teachers called me mature. Friends said I was chill. What they really meant was I was already tired. By high school, I was depressed but didn't have the language for it. I just knew I felt empty. Like I was watching my life from the outside. I smiled when I was supposed to. Laughed when it was expected. Went home and cried in the shower so nobody would hear. I ain't gonna lie, there were nights I prayed not to wake up. Not even dramatic. Just honest. Then I met him. And yeah, I know how that sounds. He was older. Confident. Said all the right things. Made me feel seen in a way nobody ever had. When you grow up invisible, that kind of attention feels like oxygen. He told me I was special. That I was different. That he'd protect me. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. At first, it was love. Or at least what I thought love was. Late night talks. Laughing in the car. Him holding my face and saying, "I got you." Then slowly, real slow, it changed. He started checking my phone. Asking where I was. Who I was with. Making jokes that weren't really jokes. You don't need them. I'm all you got. Low-key isolating me, but I didn't see it then. When I got pregnant, everything exploded. I was scared out of my mind. Told him with my voice shaking, expecting, support? Love? Something? He went quiet. Then said, "You better not ruin my life with this." That hurt more than anything anyone had ever said to me. Straight up. He promised he'd stay. Swore he would. Then one day he just didn't come back. Blocked me. Changed his number. Gone. I was 22. Pregnant. Dead broke. Living back with my mom in the same house where nobody protected me the first time. Poetic, right? Being pregnant was the loneliest I've ever been. People love pregnant women in theory. In real life, they judge you. Ask questions they got no business asking. Look at you like you messed up. I worked right up until my feet were swollen and my back felt like it was snapping in half. When I finally had my baby, I remember holding this tiny human and thinking, I have no idea how to do this, but I swear I won't fail you. That promise? It kept me alive. But it didn't make things easy. Single mom life ain't cute. It's ramen noodles. It's crying quietly so your kid doesn't see. It's choosing between gas and groceries. It's being strong even when you're empty. There were days I didn't eat so my kid could. Days I smiled through panic attacks. Nights I held them while they slept and whispered apologies for a life I didn't choose but had to survive. And the wildest part? Nobody clapped. Nobody saved me. People just assumed I had it handled because I didn't complain. Years passed. I got older. Harder. Quieter. I stopped expecting help. Stopped trusting words. Stopped believing it'll get better because honestly, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just get better at carrying it. But here's the part nobody talks about. Even when you survive, the damage stays. I flinch when people raise their voice. I apologize for things that aren't my fault. I struggle to believe anyone would stay without hurting me. And yeah, I had a glow up. Externally. Job got better. Apartment got nicer. I learned how to dress, how to talk, how to look like I had it together. But healing? That's been messy. There are nights, like tonight, where it all comes back. The kid who wasn't believed. The woman who was abandoned. The mom who had to be everything. And sometimes I wonder who I would have been if someone had protected me early on. If someone had listened. If someone had said, I believe you. If you're listening to this and thinking, damn, that's me. I see you. For real. If you're the strong one who never got a turn to fall apart. I know how heavy that is. And if nobody ever told you this, let me be the one. What happened to you was real. Your pain counts. You're not weak for still feeling it. I'm not healed. I'm not perfect. I'm still trying to survive some days. But I'm here. My kid's safe. And the cycle stops with me. That's not a fairy tale ending. That's just the truth. And sometimes, that's enough. I used to think surviving was the hardest part. Turns out, living after survival is what really tests you. Because once the chaos quiets down, once nobody's screaming, once you finally get a little stability, your brain starts talking. Loud. Bringing up memories you buried just to function. There was a point where my life looked okay on paper. I had a job. Bills mostly paid. My kid laughing again. People telling me, you're so strong. I hated that word. Strong felt like another way of saying, you don't get help. I remember one night, my kid was about 5. They asked me why I don't have friends over like other parents. Real innocent. Just curiosity. I laughed it off. Said I was busy. Truth? I didn't know how to let people get close without expecting pain. I didn't know how to relax around happiness. My nervous system was always on edge, like something bad was about to happen. When you grow up walking on eggshells, peace feels suspicious. I tried dating again at one point. Thought maybe I was ready. Thought maybe love could be different this time. It started cool. Casual. He seemed nice. Consistent. Showed up when he said he would. That alone almost felt unreal. But the second he raised his voice during an argument, not even yelling, just louder, I shut down. Like fully checked out. Heart racing. Hands numb. Couldn't breathe right. He looked at me confused and said, "Why are you acting like I'm about to hit you?" I didn't have an answer. I just knew my body remembered things my mouth didn't want to explain. We didn't last. Not because he was bad, but because I was still bleeding from wounds nobody saw. And yeah, that messed me up too. Made me feel broken. Like I missed my chance at being normal. The loneliness hits different when you're a parent. You can't just disappear. You can't spiral publicly. You gotta wake up, make breakfast, pack lunches, keep going even when you're emotionally exhausted. There were days I locked myself in the bathroom just to cry for 5 minutes. Timed it. Washed my face. Walked back out like nothing happened. I mastered that skill. Sometimes I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize myself. Like, who is this person holding everything together with duct tape and prayers? I'd think about the girl I used to be. The dreams I had. The softness I lost. And yeah, I grieved her. Nobody tells you you're allowed to mourn the version of yourself that never got a fair shot. One of the hardest moments wasn't dramatic. No big fight. No breakdown. It was quiet. My mom was watching my kid one afternoon. I overheard her telling someone on the phone, "Yeah, she's always been dramatic. But she turned out fine." Fine. That word sat in my chest like a brick. I wanted to scream. Wanted to say, "I'm not fine. I'm functioning." But I didn't. Because arguing with people who rewrite your pain just drains you. And I was already tired. That's when I realized something painful but freeing. Not everyone who hurt you will ever admit it. And waiting for closure can keep you stuck. So I stopped waiting. Healing didn't come as some big breakthrough. It came in small, ugly steps. Therapy when I could afford it. Journaling at night. Learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Letting myself feel angry, not just sad. Anger scared me for a long time. I thought it made me like them. But nah. Anger was just grief with boundaries. I started saying no. Started choosing myself without explaining. Started protecting my peace like it was my second child. And slowly, things shifted. Not magically. Not perfectly. But enough. Now my kid's older. Smarter. Kinder than I ever was at their age. Sometimes they'll hug me out of nowhere and say, "You're my safe place." Every time they say that, my chest tightens. Because nobody ever said that to me. And I realize, maybe this is the win. Not money. Not revenge. Not proving anything to anyone. But breaking the cycle quietly. I still have bad days. Still get triggered. Still feel behind in life sometimes. Still wonder if I'll ever fully trust someone. But I'm no longer ashamed of my story. If anything, I'm proud I survived it without turning cold. So if you're listening to this at some stupid hour of the night, feeling unseen, feeling like life dealt you the worst hand, hear me when I say this. You didn't imagine the pain. You didn't deserve it. And you're not weak for still carrying it. You're still here. And sometimes, that's the bravest thing a person can do. Sometimes I wonder if people really understand what trauma does to time. Like, you can be 30-something years old, paying bills, raising a kid, acting grown as hell, and then one random smell, one sentence, one tone of voice takes you right back to being that scared kid again. No warning. No control. It happened to me in the dumbest way. I was at the grocery store. Just grabbing basics. Milk. Bread. Eggs. I was already stressed because my card declined once, system glitch, but still embarrassing. The cashier sighed, real loud, like I was wasting her time. And something snapped. My chest got tight. My ears started ringing. I felt small. Like, small. I could feel tears coming and I hated myself for it. Over a grocery store line. That's when it hit me, this ain't about now. This is about every moment I was made to feel like a burden. Like my needs were too much. Like I was inconvenient just for existing. I paid. Walked to my car. Sat there shaking like I just survived something. That's the part nobody sees. I used to think I was just bad at life. Bad at relationships. Bad at trusting people. Bad at relaxing. Bad at accepting help. Turns out, I was just trained to survive, not to live. Growing up, I learned patterns that kept me alive but messed me up later. I learned to read moods fast. Learned to stay quiet. Learned to over-explain. Learned to apologize first. Learned to give more than I received. And when you do that long enough, you start attracting people who take. Friends who trauma dump but never ask how you're doing. Partners who love your loyalty but don't respect your boundaries. Jobs that exploit your work ethic because they know you won't complain. I stayed too long in situations that drained me because leaving felt scarier than suffering. At least suffering was familiar. There was a point where I hit what I now call my invisible breakdown. I didn't scream. Didn't quit my job. Didn't disappear. I just stopped feeling joy. I'd watch my kid laugh and feel guilty because I wasn't fully present. I was there physically, but mentally, I was somewhere else, fighting thoughts I couldn't explain. I'd lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling this heavy sadness I couldn't name. Not dramatic sadness. Just this dull ache like something inside me was permanently bruised. I remember whispering to myself one night, "What's wrong with me?" That question haunted me for years. The answer came way later than I expected. I was in therapy, finally. Cheap sessions. Sliding scale. Once every 2 weeks because that's all I could afford. I was telling my therapist about my childhood, like it was a news report. No emotion. Just facts. She stopped me mid-sentence and said, real calm. "You know that wasn't normal, right?" I laughed. Automatically. Said, "It wasn't that bad." She looked at me and said, "You're minimizing because you had to survive it." That hit me harder than anything. Because for the first time, someone wasn't questioning me. Wasn't correcting me. Wasn't defending anyone else. She believed me. And I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Years of silence came out all at once. Years of holding it together just collapsed in that tiny room. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't broken. I was hurt. There's a difference. Healing didn't suddenly make me confident or fearless. It made me honest. I started noticing how tired I was of pretending I was okay for other people's comfort. So I stopped. I stopped laughing at jokes that hurt. Stopped answering calls that drained me. Stopped explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. And yeah, some people didn't like that. I lost friends. Family relationships got tense. I got labeled distant, changed, cold. But peace came with it. And peace? Peace felt like oxygen after years of suffocating. One of the hardest things was learning how to be gentle with myself as a parent. Because when you grow up unloved, you're scared of messing up your own kid. Scared you'll repeat what you hate. Every mistake felt huge. Raising my voice once would ruin my whole day. I'd replay it over and over, terrified I'd become what hurt me. But then my kid would come sit next to me and say something like, "It's okay, Mommy." And I'd realize, I'm doing something right. I apologize to my kid when I mess up. I listen when they talk. I don't dismiss their feelings just because I'm tired. That alone already makes our childhoods completely different. There's still grief, though. Grief for the childhood I didn't get. Grief for the love I chased in the wrong places. Grief for the years I spent blaming myself. Sometimes I see old photos of myself, younger, hopeful, and I feel this ache in my chest. Like, damn. You deserved better. And I wish I could go back and protect that version of me. But since I can't, I protect who I am now. People ask me sometimes how I'm so independent. I don't tell them independence was forced on me. I don't tell them asking for help still feels like begging. That rest makes me anxious. That love still scares me a little. I just smile and say, life made me this way. Because explaining the truth takes too much energy. If you're still listening, still here with me, you're probably someone who's lived through some stuff too. Maybe not the same details, but the same feeling of being unheard. Unprotected. Left to figure it out alone. And I need you to know something nobody told us early enough. You were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong people. You deserve safety. You deserve softness. You deserve someone who stayed. I don't know what the future looks like for me. I don't know if I'll fall in love again. I don't know if I'll ever feel fully healed. I don't know if the past will ever stop knocking. But I do know this. I'm still here. Still choosing my kid. Still choosing myself. Still telling the truth, even when my voice shakes. And that has to mean something. There was a year I don't like talking about. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was quiet in the scariest way. People think rock bottom looks like chaos. Screaming. Crying. Losing everything at once. Mine looked like waking up every day and feeling nothing. I was functioning on autopilot. Wake up. Get my kid ready. Go to work. Smile at people. Come home. Cook. Clean. Sleep. Repeat. Inside though? I was empty. Hollow. Like someone turned the volume down on life and forgot to turn it back up. I remember sitting on my bed one night, staring at the wall, thinking, if this is all life is, I don't know how long I can keep doing this. That thought scared me. Not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't feel strongly about living either. That's a dangerous place to be. I didn't tell anyone. Because when you're the strong one, people don't know how to handle your cracks. They either minimize them or panic. And I didn't have the energy for either. So I kept it to myself. I started losing weight without trying. Stopped enjoying food. Stopped listening to music. Even silence felt loud. I'd sit in my car after work for 20 minutes before going inside, just trying to mentally prepare myself to exist. My kids saved me during that time. Without even knowing it. They do little things. Random hugs. Bad jokes. Asking me to watch the same movie for the 100th time. And I'd think, okay. Just one more day. That's how I survived that year. One day at a time. No long-term plans. Just staying. Something people don't tell you about trauma is that it messes with your memory. There are chunks of my childhood that feel blurry. Like my brain put them in a locked room and threw away the key. But some moments? Crystal clear. Like the first time I realized adults could lie to protect themselves. I was young. Sitting at the kitchen table. I finally gathered the courage to bring up what happened to me again. Thought maybe this time it would be different. I said it carefully. Calm. Almost rehearsed. And my mom looked at me, annoyed, and said, "Why are you still bringing that up?" Still. That word told me everything. I learned right there that time passing doesn't heal wounds if nobody acknowledges them. It just teaches you to shut up better. After that, I stopped trying to explain my pain to people who were invested in denying it. As I got older, I noticed something about myself. I was really good at reading people. Like, scarily good. I could tell when someone was lying. When they were uncomfortable. When they were about to leave. At first, I thought it was intuition. Later I realized it was hypervigilance. I learned to study faces because my safety depended on it once. I learned to anticipate moods because reacting too late had consequences. That skill helped me survive. It also exhausted me. Imagine never fully relaxing. Never fully trusting. Always scanning the room subconsciously. That's what my brain does. Even now. There was a moment, a real turning point, that didn't feel big at the time. I was talking to another single mom at work. We were venting about life, bills, kids, the usual. She laughed and said, "Yeah, but at least you're strong. You've always been strong." Something in me snapped, not angry, just tired. And I said, real quiet, I didn't get a choice. She looked at me differently after that. And I realized, strength isn't always something to be proud of. Sometimes it's just what happens when nobody shows up for you. I started unpacking my past more seriously after that. Not to blame anyone, but to understand myself. Why I freeze during conflict. Why I struggle with asking for help. Why love feels dangerous. The truth was uncomfortable. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being abandoned again. So I'd cling. Or push people away before they could leave. Or accept less than I deserved just to keep someone around. That pattern almost destroyed me more than once. There was one relationship in particular that hurt worse than the others. Not because it was abusive, but because it was almost healthy. He was patient, kind, consistent. And I didn't trust it. Every time things felt good, I waited for the catch. Questioned his intentions. Braced myself for impact. Eventually, he said something that still echoes in my head. "I feel like I'm paying for things I never did." And he was right. I wasn't healed enough to receive love without fear. Letting him go felt like failing, but also like protecting both of us. That loss hurt in a different way. It made me realize trauma doesn't just hurt you. It leaks onto everyone who tries to love you too. There were nights after that where I questioned everything. Maybe I was too damaged. Maybe love wasn't for me. Maybe my role in life was just to survive and raise my kid. And that thought, that I might never get to be soft, broke my heart. Because I'm not hard by nature. I became hard because I had to. One night, after my kid fell asleep, I sat on the floor and let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. The rage. The grief. The sadness. I cried for the kid I was. For the woman I became too early. For the love I didn't receive. I cried until my chest hurt. And then something strange happened. I felt lighter. Not healed. Just less alone with it. That was the first time I realized suppressing pain doesn't make you strong. It just makes the pain patient. Now, where I'm at today isn't perfect. I still struggle. Still overthink. Still get triggered. But I also laugh more now. Rest without guilt sometimes. Speak up when something doesn't feel right. And I'm teaching my kid things I had to learn the hard way. That their voice matters. That no means no. That love doesn't hurt. That feelings aren't something to be ashamed of. That alone makes all this worth it. If you're listening to this and wondering how much more you can take, I don't have a motivational quote for you. I don't have a magic ending. All I have is the truth. You're still here because some part of you, even the tiniest part, refuses to give up. Honor that part. Even if all you do today is breathe and survive. That counts. There was one night that scared me more than any other. Not because something terrible happened, but because nothing did, and I almost disappeared anyway. My kid was asleep. The apartment was quiet in that eerie way, like the world forgot you exist. I'd had a long day. Bills overdue. Work stress. That same tight feeling in my chest I'd been carrying for years. I remember standing in the kitchen, staring at the sink full of dishes, and thinking, this never ends. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just factual. I slid down against the cabinet and sat on the floor. My back against the cold wood. My hands shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion. I wasn't thinking about hurting myself. I was thinking about how easy it would be to stop caring. That's what people don't talk about. The danger isn't always pain, sometimes it's numbness. I stayed there for a long time. Minutes. Maybe hours. I don't know. And then my kid cried out in their sleep. Just a small sound. Barely a whimper. But it snapped me back. I went into their room and watched them breathe. Slow. Peaceful. Safe. And I whispered, I'm here. I got you. That sentence saved both of us. After that night, something changed, not in a big, cinematic way. More like, I stopped lying to myself. I admitted I was tired of being strong. Tired of carrying everything quietly. Tired of pretending I was okay just to make others comfortable. I started saying out loud, even if it was just to myself, this is hard. And damn, saying that felt illegal at first. Like I was breaking some unspoken rule that said I had to earn rest by suffering first. I began noticing how often I minimized my own pain. Someone would ask how I was doing and I'd say, I'm good, automatically. Even when I wasn't. Especially when I wasn't. I realized I didn't want to be seen as needy. Or broken. Or dramatic. Because once, long ago, when I needed help the most, I was ignored. That teaches you to disappear emotionally. There was another memory that resurfaced during this time. I was maybe 12 or 13. Sitting in my room. Door closed. Music playing quietly. I remember thinking, if something happened to me, would anyone notice right away? That thought shouldn't live in a kid's head. But it lived in mine for years. And adulthood didn't erase it, it just buried it under responsibilities. One of the hardest things I had to accept was this. Some people will never apologize. Some people will never take accountability. Some people will never see you the way you deserve to be seen. Waiting for that moment can keep you stuck forever. I had to grieve the parents I needed but didn't have. The protection I was owed but never received. The version of me that thought love meant endurance. That grief came in waves. Some days I was angry. Some days I was sad. Some days I felt nothing at all. And all of it was normal, even when it didn't feel okay. I used to think healing meant being happy all the time. Nah. Healing is being able to sit with your feelings without judging yourself. Healing is choosing better even when it feels uncomfortable. Healing is recognizing patterns and saying, I don't want this anymore. Healing is messy. Non-linear. Ugly sometimes. But it's real. There was a moment with my kid that really put things into perspective. They came home upset one day. Someone at school had hurt their feelings. They were holding back tears, trying to be brave. Old me would have said, you're fine. Shake it off. That's what I was taught. Instead, I sat down and said, "That sounds really painful. Do you want to talk about it?" They broke down in my arms. And in that moment, I realized, I'm giving my kid what I never got. And that matters. That changes things. Sometimes late at night, when everything's quiet, I still feel the weight of my past. It shows up as tension in my shoulders, as overthinking, as the urge to withdraw when things feel too good. Trauma doesn't disappear. It softens. It loosens its grip. But it leaves fingerprints. I don't romanticize my story. I didn't win because I suffered. I didn't become better because of the pain. I became better because I questioned it. Because I chose not to pass it on. Because I stayed. And staying wasn't heroic, it was stubborn. If you're listening to this and you feel like life shaped you too early, if you had to grow up before you were ready, if you were told to be quiet when you needed protection, I need you to hear this clearly. What happened to you was not your fault. The way you adapted makes sense. And you're allowed to want more than survival. I'm still learning how to rest. How to receive love. How to trust my own feelings. Some days I do great. Some days I struggle. But I no longer hate myself for struggling. And that alone feels like progress. I don't know where this story ends yet. I'm still living it. But for the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving the days. I'm present in them. And that feels like hope, quiet, realistic hope, the kind that doesn't scream, but stays. I didn't wake up one day and decide to heal. That's not how it went. Healing started when I got tired of feeling like I was constantly behind in life. Like everybody else got a rulebook I never received. People my age were talking about careers, marriage, vacations, finding themselves. I was still learning how to breathe without panic. Still learning how to trust my own thoughts. I used to feel embarrassed about that. Like I was late to my own life. There was this phase where I tried to reinvent myself completely. New routines. New mindset. New everything. Thought maybe if I became someone else, the pain wouldn't recognize me. I read self-help books. Watched motivational videos. Woke up early. Drank water. Journaled. Did all the right things. And yeah, some of it helped. But at night, when the house was quiet, the memories still came. Because you can't productivity your way out of trauma. I learned that the hard way. One of the loneliest realizations was understanding that nobody was coming to save me. Not my parents. Not a partner. Not some magical opportunity. That hit deep. At first, it felt unfair. Like, why did I have to do everything alone? But then it shifted. If nobody was coming, that meant I got to decide what my life looked like. That idea scared me and empowered me at the same time. I started setting boundaries. Real ones. The uncomfortable kind. I stopped answering calls from people who only showed up when they needed something. Stopped explaining my decisions to people who never listened anyway. Stopped shrinking myself to fit into spaces that felt unsafe. And let me tell you, some people did not like that. They called me distant. Cold. Changed. I let them. Because the version of me they liked was the one who never said no. There was this moment with my mom that still sits heavy with me. We were arguing, not yelling, just tense. Years of unspoken stuff in the air. She said something like, "You're too sensitive. You always have been." And for the first time, I didn't collapse inward. I said, "No. I was a child who needed protection." She went quiet. Didn't apologize. Didn't admit anything. But I didn't need her to anymore. Saying it out loud healed something in me. Forgiveness is a tricky thing. People act like it's mandatory. Like if you don't forgive, you're bitter. That's not true. I don't hate the people who hurt me. But I don't excuse them either. I forgave myself first. For staying too long. For blaming myself. For surviving the only way I knew how. That mattered more than forgiving anyone else. There was another hard truth I had to face. I didn't know who I was outside of survival. So much of my identity was built around being needed, being strong, being reliable. When I started letting go of that, I felt lost. Like if I wasn't the fixer, the caretaker, the strong one, who was I? That question haunted me for a while. I found parts of myself in small, quiet ways. Laughing too hard at dumb jokes. Listening to music I used to love before life got heavy. Letting myself rest without guilt, even if it was just for an hour. I started choosing things because they felt good, not because they were practical. That was new for me. That felt rebellious. Dating again after everything, that's still complicated. I'm more aware now. More cautious. More honest. I don't ignore red flags anymore just because I don't want to be alone. I don't confuse intensity with love. I don't chase people who make me feel anxious. And yeah, that means I'm alone more often. But I'm not lonely in the same way. There's a difference between being alone and being abandoned. I had to learn that. Sometimes I think about how different my life could have been. If someone had stepped in sooner. If someone had listened. If someone had believed me. But I don't live there for too long. Because that road only leads to grief without direction. Instead, I focus on what I'm building now. A home where my kid feels safe. A life where silence isn't scary. A version of myself that doesn't need to disappear to be loved. There are still nights where I feel overwhelmed. Nights where the past knocks hard. On those nights, I remind myself. I survived things that were never meant for me to survive alone. Of course I'm tired. Of course I'm still healing. That doesn't make me weak. That makes me human. If you're listening and you feel like life hardened you too early. If you had to be your own protector. If you're exhausted from carrying things nobody sees. I need you to know this. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not failing at healing. You're learning how to live after surviving. And that takes time. I don't know what the final chapter of my life looks like. But I know this part, this middle, is about choosing myself without guilt. About letting softness back in slowly. About trusting that peace doesn't mean something bad is coming. About believing that I deserve good things without earning them through pain. I'm still here. Still breathing. Still learning. Still loving in the ways I know how. And if that's all I ever do, that's enough for me. There's this weird moment in healing where you realize you don't miss the people who hurt you, you miss the idea of what you wish they were. I didn't miss my dad. I missed having a father who felt safe. I didn't miss my mom the way she was. I missed the mom I needed her to be. That distinction took me years to understand. Because for a long time, I kept going back, emotionally, mentally, hoping things would change. Hoping one day they'd wake up and say, I see it now. I'm sorry. But hope can become another cage if you're not careful. So I let go of that fantasy. Not in a dramatic way. Just, quietly. There's a grief nobody prepares you for, the grief of acceptance. Accepting that some people will never give you closure. Accepting that some wounds won't fully heal, they'll just scar. Accepting that you can still have a good life without a perfect past. That acceptance didn't come with relief at first. It came with sadness. A deep, grown sadness that sits in your chest and hums. But over time, it made room. I noticed something else too. Once I stopped chasing validation from people who couldn't give it, I started hearing my own voice more clearly. I trusted my instincts more. Stopped second-guessing myself so much. Stopped asking, am I overreacting, every time something felt off? Because for years, I was taught not to trust myself. And that's one of the most damaging lessons you can learn. There was a day I stood up for myself at work. Nothing dramatic. Just said no to something that would have drained me. My hands were shaking when I did it. Afterward, I sat in my car and laughed, nervous, shaky laughter. Because why did saying no feel like I just jumped off a cliff? That's when I realized. Boundaries feel dangerous when you were punished for having needs. But every time I respected myself, the fear lost a little power. My kids started noticing changes in me before I did. One day they said, "You smile more now." I froze. Because I didn't even realize I'd stopped smiling for a while. That hit me harder than any compliment. I still get triggered. Still have moments where my chest tightens for no clear reason. Still replay conversations in my head like I'm on trial. But now, instead of shaming myself for it, I get curious. What's this reminding me of? What do I need right now? Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's space. Sometimes it's just letting myself cry without fixing it. I learned something important about love too. Love isn't chaos. Love isn't anxiety. Love doesn't make you question your worth. That realization alone changed how I move in relationships. I no longer chase people who feel familiar if familiar feels unsafe. I choose calm, even when calm feels boring compared to the intensity one used to mistake for passion. Peace used to feel empty. Now it feels earned. There are moments when I feel proud of myself, and that's new. Not proud in a loud way. Just steady pride. Pride that I didn't become cruel. Pride that I didn't repeat the cycle. Pride that I chose to stay soft in a world that hardened me. That wasn't easy. Sometimes late at night, I still talk to the younger version of myself in my head. I tell her she wasn't crazy. That she wasn't dramatic. That she deserved protection. I tell her she did the best she could with what she had. And I mean it now. If you're listening to this and you're in that in-between space, not broken, not healed, just tired, I want you to know something. You don't have to rush your healing to make others comfortable. You don't have to forgive on a timeline. You don't have to be inspirational about your pain. You're allowed to just exist with it. I used to think my story was something to hide. Now I see it as proof that I survived things that could have destroyed me. Not because I'm special, but because humans are stronger than we realize when we don't have a choice. I don't know what the next chapters hold. But I know I'm no longer living on autopilot. I'm choosing. I'm present. I'm here. And for the first time in my life, that feels like enough. I'm still here. Same voice. Same slow honesty. This is the part where the story doesn't get louder, it gets deeper. There's something nobody warns you about when you finally stop living in crisis. The quiet can feel uncomfortable. When your whole life has been noise, chaos, tension, survival, peace feels foreign. Almost suspicious. Like it's temporary. Like something bad is loading. I remember the first time my life felt calm for more than a few weeks straight. No emergencies. No drama. Just routines. And instead of relief, I felt anxious. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's when I realized how deeply survival had rewired me. My nervous system didn't know how to rest. I started paying attention to how my body reacted to things. How my shoulders stayed tense even when I was relaxing. How I startled easily. How silence sometimes made my heart race. My body remembered things my mind tried to forget. So I stopped fighting it. I learned to ground myself. Simple stuff. Feeling my feet on the floor. Breathing slow. Reminding myself I was safe now. Not then. Now. That distinction mattered. I also had to unlearn shame. Shame for needing help. Shame for being tired. Shame for not being over it. People love to say, that was so long ago. As if time alone heals wounds. Time doesn't heal anything without safety. I stopped explaining that to people who didn't want to understand. There was a season where I cut a lot of people off. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. I realized how many relationships were built on me giving more than I received. Once I stopped overextending, those connections faded on their own. That hurt, but it also told me the truth. One night, scrolling through old photos, I found a picture of myself from years ago. I looked happy on the outside. But I remembered exactly how I felt that day, anxious, exhausted, pretending. That version of me did everything she could to survive. And instead of judging her, I thanked her. Because without her, I wouldn't be here. My kid's getting older now. They ask questions. Deep ones. Sometimes they ask about my childhood. I don't tell them everything, but I don't lie either. I say, I didn't always have the support I needed. And I make sure they know. They do. That's how cycles break. Not with perfection, but with honesty. There are still moments when grief sneaks up on me. Like when I see parents show up for their kids in ways I never experienced. I feel happy for those kids, and sad for myself. Both feelings can exist. Healing taught me that. I don't chase closure anymore. I create my own. Closure looks like boundaries. Like choosing peace over proving a point. Like walking away without explaining myself to people who never listen anyway. I used to think strength meant never falling apart. Now I know strength is letting yourself feel without drowning in it. Strength is asking for help even when your voice shakes. Strength is resting when your body begs for it. Strength is choosing a softer life after surviving a hard one. Some days, I still feel behind. Still compare myself to people who had support, stability, safety. But then I remind myself. They ran a different race. I ran one with obstacles they never saw. And I'm still standing. If you're listening to this and you feel tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. If you feel like you've lived 1,000 lives already. If you're carrying pain quietly because you don't want to burden anyone. I see you. And you're not weak for being affected by what you went through. You're human. I don't need my story to inspire anyone. I just need it to be true. And this is the truth. I survived. I'm healing. I'm still learning how to live without bracing for impact. And for the first time, I believe that's possible. There's a moment that comes after you've done a lot of healing where you realize, you're not who you used to be anymore. And that sounds like a good thing. But it's also terrifying. Because even pain can feel familiar. Even suffering can feel like home. I remember sitting alone one evening, lights off, just listening to the city outside my window. Cars passing. Someone laughing somewhere down the block. Life moving on without me. And I thought, if I'm not the hurt girl anymore, then who am I? That question shook me. So much of my identity was built around surviving. Around being strong. Around being the one who could take it. When that started to fall away, I felt exposed. Raw. Like a crab without its shell. Healing stripped me down. There were days I wanted to go back. Not to the pain, but to the simplicity of knowing my role. Because when you're surviving, your purpose is clear. Make it through the day. But when you start living, you have choices. And choices come with fear. What if I choose wrong? What if I fail? What if I finally rest and everything collapses? That fear followed me for a long time. I started noticing how uncomfortable I was receiving kindness. Someone would offer help and my instinct was to say, I got it. Someone would compliment me and I'd deflect. Someone would show up consistently and I'd wait for them to leave. Because consistency felt suspicious. I didn't trust good things that didn't hurt a little. That's when I realized. My trauma had taught me that love equals pain. Unlearning that? That was one of the hardest parts. There was a moment with my kid that cracked me open again. They messed up. Small thing. Spilled something. Came to me shaking, already apologizing, already bracing for impact. And my heart broke. Because that was me once. I knelt down, wiped their tears, and said, hey. It's okay. Accidents happen. They looked at me like they didn't believe it. And I realized how early fear gets planted. That night, after they fell asleep, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I was determined. I swore right there that my kid would never have to earn safety. As time passed, people started seeing me differently. Not as the girl who had it rough. Not as the struggling single mom. But as someone grounded. Calm. Present. They didn't see the work it took to get there. The nights I sat with my pain instead of numbing it. The times I chose boundaries over belonging. The moments I let myself feel anger instead of swallowing it. Growth is quiet like that. I also had to come to terms with the fact that healing doesn't mean forgetting. There are still triggers. Still memories that sting. Still moments where my chest tightens for no clear reason. But now, instead of panicking, I say, okay. Something old is coming up. I don't shame myself for it anymore. That alone feels like progress. I used to fantasize about confrontation. About finally saying everything I never said. About making people understand how much they hurt me. But honestly, peace came when I stopped needing them to understand. Some people don't have the capacity to face the damage they caused. Forcing awareness on them won't heal you. Walking away might. There was a time I thought love would save me. Now I know love doesn't save you. Safety does. And safety starts with yourself. With trusting your instincts. With honoring your limits. With choosing environments that don't require you to disappear. That shift changed everything. I still dream sometimes about my childhood home. Same rooms. Same hallways. Same feeling in my chest. But in those dreams now, I'm older. Stronger. Aware. I stand between the past and myself. That's how I know I've changed. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're in the middle of becoming someone new. If the old version of you doesn't fit anymore but the new one isn't clear yet. That limbo is uncomfortable, but it's also sacred. It means you're growing. I don't need a perfect ending. I don't need everything to make sense. I just need to keep choosing honesty over denial. Presence over dissociation. Peace over chaos. And some days, that's enough. I'm still here. Still telling the truth. Still learning how to live without armor. And if you're here too, still listening, still breathing, then maybe neither of us is as alone as we thought.